Hey everybody, this video is going to be I'm going to try to not make it long because I need to make some points and then move on. I haven't done videos like this, like back to back, in a long time. It's been a while actually, and I thought it would be good for me to do this today since I'm basically out here kind of camped out at my daughter's school waiting on her to get out. But this video, I remember back in the day we used to do video responses, and the video responses they used to have like a section that you can actually go to under the video that you're responding to start your video and everything, but that's not what it is anymore, so I'll have to detail everything at the bottom of this video. I'm responding to my road trip through the whitest towns in America, and it's a TED Talk given by Rich Benjamin, who's a black man who decided to basically live in three different states where the population was white over a 2.5-year period, or a 2-year period. I believe Utah, Georgia, I can't remember the other one right now, I should have wrote it down, but 3 different states and in certain white counties, or counties that were predominantly white areas. And my specific comments are going to go to, my commentary is basically for at John Malkovich and Percival Hans. Percival Hans actually sent me a message, or he replied to a comment that I made, because he talked about how the black family was basically destroyed by the Democrats, and that the reason why we're in the situation we're in as black families is because, come on now, and the reason why we're in the situation we're in as black families is because basically we don't want to do right. We are violent. It's basically a black thing, and it's a Democrat thing. But what he also brought up was the best times for the black family were during the Jim Crow era. The Jim Crow era was a time where blacks really couldn't get on equal footing with anybody. We couldn't, and when I say we, I can actually say we, because my grandmother, my mother's mother, and my great-grandmother, my father's grandmother, were actually in the South during, or they were either born in the South and raised in Chicago. One from Mississippi and one from Georgia. And they grew up during times where blacks were looked down upon. My grandmother's mother and father, my maternal grandmother's mother and father were not together, or they were. See, it's really weird how history works and how heredity works. It's bad enough that black people don't have the genetic markings. Turn my notifications off. It's bad enough that we don't have the genetic code or the markings to actually find out exactly where we came from and who we came from. It's really bad. But this is how it was told to me. My great-grandmother, my mother's grandmother, gave birth to my grandmother, and soon after passed away, and my grandmother was raised by her mother's sisters. I don't know where my great-grandfather was at the time. It was told to me that they weren't together that long, or whatever. But this was in the 20s and 30s. We could easily, if this was a pathology of black families not sticking together, it would be because of what slavery actually did to the black people who we are today. What I can't, and I'm going to be all over the place because I'm kind of going off the cuff because I have so much in me right now to say. But going off of the fact that I don't know a whole lot about my great-grandfather or my great-grandmother on my mother's side, it speaks to how much we don't know as black people about where we came from and who we came from. We don't know any of the backgrounds. We don't know the original names. We don't know the original birth dates. We don't know any of that stuff because of the Atlantic slave trade. And when the slaves came here, all of their information, all of their belongings, they came here naked. They had nothing but basically breath in their bodies. And they were sold to the highest bidder. And if you weren't, I'm guessing that if you weren't up to par, you weren't actually worth a whole lot. But just think about it. Somebody takes you from a whole country or a whole continent or many continents around the world or many countries on continents around the world, and they implant you in a place where today they're saying you need to be happy and you need to be grateful to us, because if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be experiencing all of this love and light that America is giving you. That to me is ballsy for some people to say, and I've actually been told that sometimes. So my great-grandmother, my father's grandmother, she was 105 years old when she passed away in 2004. She was born in 1899. She was the daughter of slaves. This is why we keep saying we. If anybody ever has a question about why we keep saying we, it's because we have a very close connection to the slaves. We're only about, let me see, about 55 years out of the civil rights, the end of the civil rights era. 55 years out of Jim Crow. And we are right now, today, in a place where we can't really go into all, not all white communities are like that. But there are communities where black people cannot go to stand around or to admire scenery or check out a house that they actually purchased. Or we can't be in a neighborhood full of white people in some places because it is said that they don't trust us to do anything but mess things up. They trust us to come into the situation and lower their property values just by being there, just by standing there. That's how we're seen. So when I watched it twice, my road trip through the whitest towns in America by Rich Benjamin. Rich Benjamin is a columnist for a newspaper in New York, I believe. And he basically wanted to conduct an experiment of basically what it would be like for him as a black man to infiltrate basically all white communities, 3 all white communities, and participate in everything that white people participate in their communities. And he played golf, he played poker, he loved golf. He noticed that many, almost all of the people that he encountered were good people. But what he got from it was the fact that although they were not racist, and not everybody in those communities were racist, the communities that were formed based on racism. And a lot of people are not going to understand what he's saying or what I'm saying right now, but keep up. There is a reason why blacks were not in the communities before he showed up. There was already an idea that they were going to move to the furthest parts of America, or Middle America, or wherever, where nobody would be able, like it would probably be inaccessible for us. So we wouldn't want to move to Utah. I don't have a desire to move to Utah or Colorado or anywhere where there's a whole lot of, an excessive amount of mountains and stuff like that. Although I do love looking at them, I don't want to be there because I know that there are some places there where I would not be seen as welcome. Some might welcome me and others might not. You know? And that's basically how it works for black people. We don't trust really well. The one thing that I'm really happy about with him is that he ventured out to prove those of us who are afraid wrong, that not all white communities are made equal. Not all white communities, it's kind of hard to say, but not all white communities are racist. There are people who will welcome you with open arms and look at you like you're a human being, even though there might be a small amount of people there who could look at you and see nothingness and see only ghetto mentality and stuff like that. He also mentioned something else, and I want to say that before I leave, before I go on. He said that in some of the towns, one black person is a great dinner guest. 5 black people are a ghetto. And that's what we're dealing with right now. The stigma attached to how some white people see black people, and have always seen black people, especially after slavery. After slavery, the KKK was immediately formed to keep us in line. There were no police officers patrolling and things of that nature until the KKK actually came out and started doing their patrols. Their slave patrols. They're patrolling for black people and seeing how many they could actually get to hang and to beat and to submit to their will. So it was a very brave thing for him to do, because he didn't know what he was getting into. Now, I want to get into something. I think his name is John Malkovich, not the real John Malkovich, but some person who has the screen name John Malkovich. He said, imagine if it was turned around. Do a TED Talk about white people going to a Blacktopia. Oh yeah, Rich Benjamin called it Whitetopia. And a lot of people don't understand what Whitetopia means. Whitetopia, okay, if you're familiar with the word utopia, utopia is basically a fantasy place where everything is right with the world. Everything is right. Everybody accepts everybody. Everybody loves everybody. Everybody is willing to dance with you and take you in if you're hungry. And basically all of the elements are working in your favor in this utopia. So with Whitetopia has always been a thing for black people, and it's never really had a name until he put it on there. A place where there's no ethnicity, there are no other ethnicities, but it comes off as though wherever a bunch of white people are, or a large amount of white people are, there is peace, tranquility. Everybody's golfing, everybody's having picnics and things of that nature, and they're in their own world and nobody's bothering them. That's what Whitetopia means, and that's what I took it to mean from him. So with that said, John Malkovich said, what if we turned it around and made it and said, the Blacktopia? There is no Blacktopia. There's no Blacktopia for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is because it is known, or is assumed universally that black Americans in general reside in hovels, that we all reside in the ghetto, that we don't venture out, we don't go into affluent neighborhoods, that we don't do anything that's high class. And so a Blacktopia does not exist. It doesn't exist on paper. It doesn't exist in real life. I don't think we have a whole lot of black communities where you can actually go in, and I'm being very objective here. There are not a lot of black communities you can go in and say it's 100% peace. And this is why a lot of people look at us as though we are all violent, because that's what they see on television. Someone will see me walking down the street and think that I was probably from the hood, just based on how I look. Just because my skin is dark, they would automatically assume that I am from the hood. Now, they'd be half right, because I grew up there. But I think hood is a mentality. It is not where you are. It's the mind state you're in. So I believe that you could be hood and be in an affluent white neighborhood too. If you have a gutter mentality, that's exactly where you are, even in that white community. Or if you're in an affluent one of the few affluent black communities, and you have a gutter attitude, that's exactly who you are. You're a gutter. It's not because of who you are. It's not because of where you are. It's because of who you are. I've tried to stay on topic, but I felt I need to put this out there. Percival Hans. I wanted to address him because he said that the black nuclear family were better off during the Jim Crow era, because during Jim Crow, black families stuck together, and today it's not the same, because of the Democrats. All of the families, first of all, we're not gonna lie and blame everything on the Democrats, because we can actually blame Democrats, Republicans, and anybody else who were bureaucrats at the time of us being separated from the slave master to getting out on our own, and being separated physically, emotionally, and economically from everybody else. We can blame a lot of people, but we should not just blame the Democrats. How about we blame Democrats and Republicans who knew the value of their properties, and that they were better off without black people mucking it up for them. So they separated us throughout the country, sent us to different places, sent us to different corners of the world, or corners of the country, and established ghettos for us. They were originally supposed to be like jump starts, so that we could get into like a house or whatever, or get into an apartment building or something, and we would stay there, get a job, and go off. But that was never, ever, ever really the plan. Once the civil rights movement ended, and personally I don't think it's over yet, but once Jim Crow was supposedly buried and had died, it was said, now blacks are free, they can do anything, they can vote, they can get their lives on and things of that nature. But what you didn't understand back then was that now there was a whole lot of conditioning when it came to separating the black family from the slave master, to bringing them into this area where now the black man, even after being slaved, even after Jim Crow, the black man is looked at as public enemy #1 because he is very strong-minded. He's very strong-willed. He will do anything for his family. So the one thing that society did, some in white society, and then eventually some in black society did, was emasculate our men. The government tore our families apart. Not just the Democrats. They had help. The government tore our families apart. It all happened between, like, when everything like broke, it was between 1965 and it's still going on right now. I was born in 1974, in the middle of everything breaking, in the middle of everything being broken down. Now my parents were married. I was conceived out of wedlock, but my mother and father got married 4 months after I was born because my dad wanted to be married on Father's Day, his birthday. So there was a foundation there. It wasn't a stable foundation because they had to basically work with what they were given. My father, as it came to us later after he passed away, my father was homeless. My mom was going through dysfunction in her family. They found each other. They clung to each other. They wanted to be with each other. They made it happen. They were poor. There were a lot of things that my mother did not know because my grandmother did not know them, because her auntie did not know them. There's a lot of things that my father did know, but was basically kind of, it was almost like he was forbade to do a whole lot of things because he was different. So he tried and he failed at a whole lot of things. And he was a great man. My mom is still alive and she's a great woman, and they both had a whole lot of potential. But when you don't have the tools to teach a black child exactly how to get along in life with that, without cutting corners and things like that, something's gonna fail. Somebody's going to fail. Something's not gonna prosper. So with that, I'm gonna kind of ease into pathology. I love how some white people tell us, if it wasn't for the Democrats, or if it wasn't for black mothers or black fathers not being in the kids' lives, they wouldn't be where they are right now. Kids wouldn't be in jail or in juvie or dropping out of school or having babies and things of that nature. I love how they love to do that pathology there. They want to link the mother's failures and the father's failures to the children's failures. But they're not willing to go all the way back and understand that when you affected their forefathers and ancestors and everything back in the day, when their ancestors were treated like crap for 400 years almost. That pathology actually started there. So because my 7th great grandmother or 7th great grandfather was a slave and was treated like crap, they were never taught value. Because their kids actually, probably along the lines, I have no idea, but along the lines, they were treated like crap because they didn't have any value, because their parents didn't have any value. So on and so forth and so on and so forth. And now we're in 2018, and the only thing that some white people want to focus on is the last 40 years. You're not willing to go back to the source and go back to the genesis of it all. I think that's funny. Pathology only works for some white people when they want to talk about Jim Crow. And how we did you a favor by not, you should be happy that your people were slaves, because if they weren't, you'd be in, somebody told me, you need to get on your knees and thank me, because if it wasn't for me and my people, you and your people would be in Africa swatting flies. I don't have to thank anybody for that. I don't have to thank anybody for that but those who actually fought against it, you know, fought against slavery. I don't have to forgive anybody for that. I don't owe anybody who comes at me like that an apology or any thankfulness. I don't owe them anything. And they don't owe me. But don't for 1 second only use pathology, the pathology of 40 to 50 years to explain why black people are not where they should be, when there was 398 years beforehand where they could have actually come up. That's like saying, if your black mother and your black father got together and they stayed together, you should get into a relationship with someone and you should stay together and have children, and they should get the same thing. If it works for 50 years, if you think that it should work for 50 years, that all of that progress should work for 50 years, it should have worked from 398 years ago. And that's my opinion. Before I end this, I want to say this. Yes, I do realize that, and I shouldn't have to say this. I shouldn't have to. But something's telling me that I'm going to have to. Because there are going to be a lot of people who will or won't watch this video and have some kind of thought about me. I don't feel particularly pretty right now. I don't. I have really bad teeth. The sun's been baking me out here in Arizona. I love my skin color, but I don't like the condition my skin is in. I know that I'm not pretty to everybody. This video is not of me being a fat lady. This video is not about me being a fashion plate. I'm not here to deliver my message so that somebody can look at me and go, ooh, you're pretty. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to deliver truth. And if you're down with the truth and you would like to comment, rate, subscribe, and share this video, understand, anybody who comes at me like that will probably get blocked. Or I'll leave you on, because it's not the only thing that I have to say. I'm not a one-trick pony. I am a black woman living in a country a country that is being run by a toddler who has no idea what it is to have true power and true leadership skills. And I feel like it is beneficial for me, along with others, to enlighten those who really think they know everything about black people. don't know everything. Don't know everything. So if you're really going to do a pathology thing, understand that if you can make a comparative analysis of 50 to 55 years after, from the time of, actually, shoot, Jim Crow had been going on for years up until 1965, when the Voting Rights Act was dropped. If you're going to do that pathology from that time to 55 years ago, you have to go back to where it all came from. That's my opinion. So if you like it, you love it, you hate it, let me know down in the comments below.